Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on Zoom and obviously on Facebook and any other platform that you might be using. Welcome to Texila American University Zambia Thought Leadership Series. So this is a program that we hold. It's a public lecture, so it's open to everybody, and we hold this once every month. Okay, and it's absolutely free. So please join us every month and look out for our notifications. Today we have a special guest at our campus, and his name is Abel Chungumusuka, and I will just give a brief introduction of him. First of all, Abel, you are more than welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so Abel Chungumusuka is an award-winning Zambian artist who has been in the music industry for over a decade, which is a while. Yes. He's a husband and a father, and he's also a member of the award-winning group of musical and inspirational artists called Lotta House. He has performed on various platforms in and outside Zambia, and he has 3 music albums to his name. He has also served with the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia to train the church in election monitoring, and he has also been a radio host on different radio platforms, and he'll be speaking to us today on the role of entertainers in national unity. And so please feel free to post your questions in the chat section, and Mr. Musuka will gladly respond to them. So if you have any questions, please just post them on there and we'll be able to see them. And now please help me welcome Mr. Abel Chungu Musuka.
All right, how's everyone doing? I hope you guys are great. So today's topic is the role of entertainers in national unity. So it sounds like an easy topic, because I think a lot of people assume that as entertainers, our only job is to, when times are really tough, we just get together, sing "We Are the World," and the world is a better place after that. But it's not as easy as it sounds, because the world is consistently changing. Entertainment plays a huge part in culture as well. So there's so many things that you have to understand. So many times when I travel in my work, 2 things I like to ask people. I always ask people about the spiritual situation of the country. Basically, what do you guys consider sacred? What is important to you guys? What are your principles? And then the second thing that I always ask is, what's the political environment in the country at the time? Because oftentimes when I go to these places, people, you get different kind of treatment when you're an artist. Take note of that. Acceptance is the biggest desire for any human being. Structures are built on that, on acceptance. Any structure that has a sense of power has built its reputation on people's desire to want to be a part of it, to want to be seen with it, to want to be recognized by it. So any structure, universities, colleges, governments, money, it creates that. Now, power is what I describe as the ability to grant acceptance. Any person with power has the ability to give someone a sense of recognition or visibility, or which a lot of people assume, or other money, or a lot of people would assume gives them a sense of acceptance. Now, where am I going with this? Many times when successful entertainers, you'll find anytime they're walking around the street or they're seen, people either want to take pictures with them or be seen with them, or their names bring a sense of more recognition. If I tell you about, oh, do you hear what John did? Well, John who? But if I tell you, did you hear what Chris Brown did? People are like, oh, Chris Brown, that's an interesting story. That's, that name rings a bell. It gets you got me interested. What did he do this time? So his being an entertainer gives you a sense of the ability to make other people with their affiliation with you, to be recognizable, to be seen. So now the question is, what are entertainers' roles? Entertainers' roles at this point, I feel, in order to create unity, is to give people greatest desire, which is to feel a sense of acceptance. The reason why a lot of people right now, there's always divisions and different things, is that a lot of people are now kind of drifting towards what they feel they relate towards, what they're accepted by. So you find a lot of people are, well, now it's no longer my affiliation. I could have been born a Zambian, but halfway along the way, my affiliation to either my political party or whatever my profession is will begin to mean more to me than anything else. So that becomes that's what now I want to be accepted by. So oftentimes artists or entertainers are then could be either pulled into a system that creates an environment of them being used as tools either to or the voices to make people who are not visible visible. I remember somebody was asking me this question earlier on and was saying, "Wow, I should touch on the topic about people who are, tribalism, different things like that." And I said, the one of the things that can help in that area is if because what it often does is there's a perception about maybe a popular perception. So there are things that we could be able to do in those cases that could be able to create a sense of perception or difference. So now you might want to write this down. So this is very important. What are the things that create unity, no matter across the board? So every single time people are divided by what they don't agree on. The first thing that you need to understand is, what do we agree on? It's the first thing that makes us, all speak one language. The first priority is always love. I always, people tell me, no, why is love? Because love is a universal language. Anyone and everyone is seeking a sense of happiness, is seeking a sense of, is there hope? I write love songs, and one of the things I honestly tell you is that no matter who somebody is or where they're from, they'll relate. They're like, I can't even hear what the language is, but I relate. So the issue of love is to make people understand that no matter where they're from, that there's a hope for love, or they can be loved. So that is a language that everybody wants to be able to hear. That is a language that it goes across the board. That shouldn't matter about your skin color. Those are things that I think will bring a priority of unity. Is I love you. One of my favorite scriptures, John 13, verse 35, says, if you walk in love, only then will they know that you're my disciples. So what ends up happening is that I could go anywhere in the country or anywhere in any place, and I'll meet someone and I'll feel the sense of, I won't have to, if I have love as a priority, I will not put that person in any people group or category before I think about them as a human being and someone who needs to be loved. Now, one of my favorite descriptions of love is joyfully choosing to take an action that promotes the welfare of another. So if I find somebody who's hungry, if people are in an area and they're saying, we're really hungry where we are, as an artist and as an entertainer, I will bring that issue to light. Not in any way of an attack against the government. Anyway, I will bring an issue that is critical to those people, because that is an action that needs to be acted upon for those specific people. That is a voice that needs to be heard. If there's an issue on gender-based violence, then I need to bring that issue to light. I need to be able to speak that, because that right there is the most important thing to that person. If a woman, whether she lives in a mansion and is being beaten by her husband, it doesn't matter. Money is not the priority for her at that point. What is the priority? She needs safety. She needs protection. And that, as an artist or an entertainer, you bring that to light. So, which is why media plays a very huge part in all of this, because media tells us the stories of what we assume the world is like. We don't have eyes in the back of our head. So entertainers who are in the media, you need to be able to understand that what narrative are we telling people out there? What are we actually sharing with people out there? Because at the end of the day, their perception or how they see life will be based upon their views. So every time I sit down and I watch the news, what information am I getting? If I open my phone, what information am I getting? And that information begins to create the environment that I assume, or my perception of what the world is like. I know some people have never been to a certain country, and they'll be like, "Well, I'll never go to that country because they're like this." I'm like, "Well, how do you know that?" No, because I saw it on the news, and that's really what it is. Is that sometimes in our quest to get the clicks or the likes or anything, do something what we consider, provocative or something that's over the edge to get attention, but we actually forget that we're actually creating the narrative sometimes. So you have to understand that what you're making also creates a narrative. There's a quote which I created, which I love. I say, for me as a musician, but I think it can go in any way of life. Is a good musician makes music people want to hear, but a great musician makes music people need to hear. So when you hit a need in people's lives, you have them for life. You have them listening to you because that will create that substance that goes a long way. If if you just hitting me with a want, yeah, it's fun, it's exciting sometimes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have the substance that I can carry with me in life in terms of wisdom. So even in our even in our music, even in our works, we have to take a priority. We have to take a very huge priority. I understand entertainment, but we have to take a priority in terms of giving people something that will be there with them for a long time to come. So, which also brings me to I remember in a time that I visited Uganda, and they took us to a place where it was like a cultural village. It was really beautiful. And in that cultural village, what they actually showed us was there was these different plays, and there was a man who was narrating all of these different cultures. Like imagine like all these different cultures and tribes, and he's telling you the stories, and there's people in the background, in Lord Club and doing all these dances and what, and you say this is the dance from this, and this is the dance, and this cultural village exists so that when tourists come to that country, they have an understanding of all of the cultures in that country. And it's a beautiful, I remember I had a chance to sit with him. I said, this is a beautiful place because in one night I got just an image of the culture. Because when you go to a city or a different country, you might see the buildings and people see the development, but the people, the culture is where the people are from. So we need also as entertainers and people to understand how we preserving culture at the end of the day. Because as modern life is becoming more common. I'm here in a jersey from a foreign country. I'm wearing a T-shirt from a foreign country. What about me is reminding me that I'm in Zambia? So you need to have a sense of that self-preservation. You need to have a sense of visibility for culture. And I think many times where you have tribal clashes is that we're living in a country with about 72 different tribes and 74 languages. I might mess that up. But the truth is, all of these tribes want a sense of visibility. You often find some people say, well, why are they only speaking one language? And it's a very important thing because the question is, who's preserving or speaking the language of that culture? Where is the music from that culture? And all of these, we need to find a way that show people that they're accepted. Remember, the first thing that I mentioned was acceptance is the greatest desire for a human being. So when we begin to show people that every single culture is visible, can be seen. I remember reading a list of all the tribes of them and some that are and languages, and I'm thinking, wow, I've never even heard about that. And we cannot pass by that. We need to be able to be seeing that. People need to be able to see that and say, oh, that actually exists. What does it sound like? What does the language sound like? What is the music from that? So preserving culture, educating people about culture is a huge, huge responsibility for the entertainment industry. Now, sometimes the idea of an entertainer is perceived as in, you're putting on a show. Well, they say like entertainment is to entertain, and which means it's something to captivate. It's a way to captivate an audience. So the lights, when you go to a concert, the lights, the dancing, the fireworks are to captivate you, to leave you in a place where you can never forget. You can't forget that easily. If a the bigger the artists, the bigger the lights, the bigger the shows, the bigger the bands, because they want to captivate you. If I'm gonna do one show that you'll never forget, I'm gonna make sure that it's not something that you will never forget. I'm gonna give you an unforgettable thing. So in everything, even what we do, when we're giving people that something that is significant and powerful, we must always package it in a way that can captivate them, that they can never ever forget it, in a way that they'll this it's gonna stay with them. And imagine if everything that we do, even that's important, that's educational, is taught or shared in a way that they can never forget. For example, we all know the melody for Sesame Street. Now, that was an educational program as we were kids, but this is a whole show built on educating kids, but done extremely well. Somebody went to the great lengths of making puppets and all that kind of stuff. There was artists. They just didn't say the vowels. They did it in a cartoon format. So all of that was in a way to educate and bring light to certain things. And so I feel like we need to be, when we step our game up in terms of what we're selling people, in terms of to educate them, it will change the dynamics. I know people groups, especially in the United States of America, that for their strategy was basically to get into the entertainment industry. So they started, infusing themselves into, script writing, and they started infusing themselves into movies, different storylines. And as that began to happen, people began to ease up on them and think, oh, it's okay, because now what are you? You're an entertainment. You're part of my daily life. I now see you on the screen. So therefore, I think then there's absolutely nothing wrong. So the entertainment industry is very, very, very vital when people want to be able to share a message. It shouldn't be something that anyone should be able to shy away from. Because at the end of the day, when anyone watches any sense of entertainment or sees something, in a way, it does change culture. I remember there was a rapper, Tupac, I remember, was asked this question, like, well, why do you put violence in music? And his response was, and which is the response of many rappers, they all say, well, what we make, our music is an imitation of what we've seen growing up, what we've seen, all the streets, all the shootings, all the violence. That's what we see. But even as that much is true, which is a very true aspect, we write the stories that we've seen, we write the pains, we write the successes that we've seen. But there is that point where when you're making music and you're saying, I'm gonna, ride in a Bugatti and it's got 2 million sales. How many people actually own one? There is also the way people plug into your message with a sense of hope. There's hope. So someone will plug into your message with the idea of, man, are you saying I can actually live like that? Oh man, then I'm definitely with you. So that's the part where we can't take away from the argument that as entertainers, we might make music that is reflective of the environment, but we can also make music that give entertainment that is reflective of the future that we desire to see. One of my favorite movies was Black Panther. And so many Black people went to watch Black Panther. Hit $1 billion, amazing movie. And I think what resonated with a lot of us was watching that movie was like, man, is it possible? Could it really be to have Africa, something that still has our culture, but is so advanced that it makes the world envious? And I think that part of hope is always in the back of our minds as human beings. You find even people who are single love songs, like, oh, love songs. One moment they'll be like, oh, I don't want to date, dating is horrible. And then they hear a love song like, oh, I want to be in love. Because hope at the end of the day is still something that consistently triggers with us. So reflecting back now, going back on some of the things, what did we talk about? We talked about acceptance being the biggest priority that human beings have. We talked about love. We talked about putting that as a priority. Love is joyfully choosing to take an action that promotes the welfare of another. So, meaning that in everything that we do, we have to look at what are the actual needs that people are going through. What are the actual cries that people are hurting from? What is the actual voice of the voiceless? And as entertainers, we have a platform, we have our sense of responsibility. And we also talked about hope. Uh, Hope is a primary reason why many of us will listen to something even though it doesn't relate with our life, because we believe somebody's telling us that there's something like this that exists and you can be able to have it. Somebody could be singing about yachts and fast cars, and you're living in a one-room shack, but you be playing that song over and over and over again because it gives you in the background, it gives you a sense of hope that it can be done. That there's somebody out there, if he can live like that or she can live like that, then maybe it can be done with you. So those I feel are the foundations of that can bring unity. Now, many of us, one of the things that I need to put as a warning is being aware that any of these, also these things can be hijacked. Now, what do I mean by hijack? I found that there's also a pattern that is being used by many times where people will find an agenda or find a grievance that people are going through and use that to make them feel a part of something. Of I will deal with this issue if you become a part of this. Now that's what you find many times now. When you're an artist, you begin to, or an entertainer, you find people say, "Well, why aren't you talking about this issue?" I'm thinking about, but why? But no, you need to talk about that issue. And you realize sometimes it might be a real issue that people are going through, or at the end of the day, it might be just an agenda and you're being used for something that you're not ready for. So it's always good to have wisdom. It's always good to have an understanding. And I would say, like, live for something that you can spend, or fight for something that you can live, die on a hill for, or live the rest of your life. Many times your voice could be used for something that's either political gain or what, but the question is, are you ready to die on that hill? If you're going to be able, if you say, unity is only going to happen through, my political candidate, the question is, are you willing to die on that hill? Because when they say dying on a hill, fighting an uphill battle is the hardest thing as a soldier. So if you're going to push something, an agenda, or push it, are you willing to die on that hill? Because you might die trying to fight your way up. So always understand that everything has a purpose and everything has a reason. But as an entertainer, we must have our passions as our priority in terms of what we're trying to speak about and what exactly we're trying to push for. So I just hope that this has been some vital information that people can be able to use. And if there's any questions based on what I've spoken about today, I'm very much open. How long did I talk?
Pretty much almost half an hour.
Oh wow, great. Okay, great. So I get woken up with some questions. I've got some streaming on my Facebook, but I think I'll give priority to students.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So a question here, how can artists best unify the country, especially with elections coming up?
Okay. So whoa. So if you take some of the things that I was talking about here on the platform, is so you're an artist. What do you find you at first identify what are the conflicts that people are having about heading towards elections? Is it the partisan thing? Are people being pulled left and right and told, hey, you have to align with this or else you're not that? I made a decision a long time ago that I'm not going to be supporting any political party. It's just basically how, I grew up in a political family. I've seen my father serve under two presidents, and I just don't feel like in my life I can fully back a human being and say, this is the best guy to change the whole situation. So what I do identify, if you watch my life, is that I identify problems, I identify issues, and I bring those issues to light. One of the things I remember one time I helped identify was the enrollment system for grade ones. That was last year. I brought that to light. It wasn't intended to attack or expose or anything. I just brought that issue to light where I talked about the enrollment systems Parents were sleeping in trenches trying to get their kids enrolled into grade one. Parents would have to pay schools. And I found when I was in, I think, Chawama, I took pictures of, and I asked them, I said, do you mind if I take video? And these women just said yes. And they went, and they had to be there by 21 hours so that they can try to enroll their kids the next day at 6 a.m. When we brought that to light, the minister of lower education at the time banned grade one enrollment until they could create a better system. So now, was that any attack on the government? No. Was that on any? It didn't bring it happened. No. The thing was, I identified a problem or an issue, and I simply put it on a platform, and I used my platform as able. People sometimes follow me for my music, but they consistently watch. And I said, you know what? If people are going to see this, let them see something that is significant. Now, what did I talk about? I talked about love. Love, joyfully choosing to take an action that promotes the welfare of another. You take joy, you'll die on that hill because another person's life needed to become better. So identify what are some of the things that people are fighting for. You don't have to go anti this, anti that. You can literally find things that are going on because governments will consistently always change. You know, some will stay in power, some will not. But the issues that people are fighting for or going through are still there. Question is, what are you going to do about it? So taking a sense of personal responsibility is important, and giving people hope, not just in a party or political candidate, is giving people hope in themselves and believing. That's something that we can be able to do even without any affiliation. And when people begin to see that, you begin to empower people. And at the end of the day, empowered people make empowered decisions. So you can empower people without them having to rely on political affiliation to feel empowered. So I think that requires not only just the entertainment industry, but also a lot of young people who are getting an education and intellectuals. And if we merge and work together, I think we can achieve a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Esther is asking a question. Could you then say that artists are sitting in their comfort zone by not learning other languages? I think that's in relation to the languages aspect that you brought up. So they're not singing. There's this inclination to maybe one or two languages. Yeah, I'm guessing that's.
Okay, so let's one of the things that I mentioned before was a sense of generalizing. I don't want to generalize every artist. I think there's artists out there you might have never heard of. You know, again, remember when I talked about packaging. Really, if you want to send a message, send it in a way that has never been done before. I meet so many artists who tell me, oh, I made this song. This is a really important song. My mom died and I wrote this song. And so they sell you the purpose of it. And then when you hear it, you're like, this song is terrible. And not that the idea of their mom dying is terrible, but the song is terrible. So what do? Artists who can, sing, or if you've got something that you've got a great message, you nurture people you go in search of artists who their languages I can't speak. Their languages I've tried infusing different languages in my music, but what you can do is you find talent that is extremely good that can communicate even in a different language, and you give it a platform. I remember I sat on a committee for the Pacha Music Awards, and when we were forming it, we said, why not begin to award every artist from every province? The radio stations in those provinces will all select their best artists in that area. So we began to see artists who we've never heard of in areas that people have probably never even performed. They were competing amongst themselves, and their voices, their music was being heard, because even in those areas, those towns, those provinces, they have that. So if we take something like that and we take it as a national priority, where we say, oh, there's music coming out of this place, but it just doesn't get the platform on all these big radio stations. You don't have that TV push, and we invest into that, then I believe that can be able to give people a voice that you've never heard of. I think there's artists in the industry now who have great amazing vocals or a different style, and people are beginning to open up their ears to that. And I'm hoping that it's going to continue. And I think there's so much the music industry or entertainment industry needs to do to be able to see that.
Okay. Should I go to the Facebook question?
Yeah, sure.
I could ask them from here.
Oh, you got them? Oh, you're reading?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Great.
Okay. Hakola Malambo says, when it comes to unity of the nation, does it matter what genre of music one artist is into to influence the spiritual aspect of unity? Should gospel artists and secular ones work together in this, or should each one of them play a different role?
I'm trying to process. I'm really processing that question. Just read it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to unity of the nation, does it matter what genre of music one artist is into to influence the spiritual aspect of unity? Should gospel, I think it's in two parts. So maybe, should I read the first part and stop and then, okay.
Yes.
So when it comes to unity of the nation, does it matter what genre of music one artist is into to influence the spiritual aspect of unity?
So, I've always liked to say, and I hate the fact that my Facebook is, my time is about to, at 15 seconds. But I've always felt that in terms of music where it's genre, like especially gospel music, I don't call it a genre of music. I find it as in it's not a genre, because I think the moment it becomes a genre, you begin to realize that there's a cliche sometimes which people want you to sing.
Yeah.
And the moment you sing something different that doesn't sound to them as gospel. I remember when I released a song called Despite My Fault. Somebody says doesn't sound gospel, but the song was like basically Jesus died for me and he loves me despite my faults, which is the foundation of the message of the gospel. I remember being told it doesn't sound gospel. So again, you have what people in the people group that people are accepted by, where people found their acceptance. There's also sometimes a style of music that they find. So when they find that, oh, this is the music we're supposed to listen to if I'm accepted in this people group, then anything that comes into that sounds foreign. I found certain what was someone would consider a secular artist sometimes make great, really uplifting music. But as a Christian, somebody never touch it, even if that music has a message that I find, if I read the Word of God, falls absolutely in line with the Word of God. Even as myself, when I do write what people would consider a love song, which I still find as gospel music, somebody say, well, why are you writing love songs? But if I open my Bible, I will find, a message about love between a man and a woman. And if I open the Songs of Solomon. So oftentimes people like exactly, but I found that message is what unites us, is that I'll sit in a church and I'll drive by a place which has, bars of what people would consider secular society, and they'll be playing that music. I'll walk into a church and somebody wants me to sing a song as they're giving their vows, and they'll be singing that music. Again, you find the need, the hope, the desire, the things that that the message that unites people. And I've always found that love is something that unites people. There's artists who, people relate with their sound, and when no matter what, if they come and hold a concert, people are like, you know what, I'm gonna go and listen to that. Of course, being a Christian, I've always put Jesus at the center as what the world needs. But I also do find at the end of the day that when people are making music, what are the needs that people are going through? What is the message? And I always felt like, well, even when Jesus was on the earth when he was preaching, they say compassion. He had compassion. When Jesus saw someone in this situation, he had compassion. I don't say compassion is love in action. It's not that I just left you and I said bless you. I found a way to help you that was most necessary for you at that time. So yeah, it doesn't matter where I feel someone is coming from, but at the end of the day, their message in the music is gonna have to meet a need, and there's needs that every one of us have that we meet at a point. That at the end of the day, even like the Bible does talk about the true religion, as well as also giving someone a glass of water. It's looking after widows. It's looking after orphans. If somebody is doing that, let them do that. Let them do that. To us, who consider ourselves Christians, we do that to the glory of God. If someone is doing it out of thing, I can't stop someone saying, "Well, I'm helping kids. I'm doing this." Then let's do it together, hand in hand, and make the world a better place.
Okay. I think you've sort of answered the second part.
Oh, there's a second question? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, should gospel artists and secular artists work together, or should each one of them play a different role, obviously, with regards to national identity?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's yeah.
Yeah, you sort of.
Yeah, I think I tackled that.
Okay, okay. All right, then I think based on time not being with us, but I'll just acknowledge some of the people here. Brian Chama.
Hey, Pastor B.
Yes. Akola Malambo,
Yeah.
Michael Angelo Mono.
Let me just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And others say Hala Madrid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Isaac
thanks.
Kawamba, thank you so much.
I know Appa wanted me to carry a paper for such programs. Yeah.
Yes.
But you see, the thing is, like, when
But you're speaking from the
yeah,
heart.
that's what I find.
Mhm.
That's one of the things. That's the main point I hit at the end, is that you approach something that you're passionate about. Talk about, follow something that you're ready to die on the hill. This is stuff that you can have a conversation with me about, even off, just in the streets. It's things that are on my heart. This was an open discussion, and that's what the purpose of this was for, is to have people who do this for a living and say, let me have an opportunity to be able to share this. So I'm glad you guys got a chance to listen, and I know some people wanted to join us live, but hey, like to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't have the battery power. I'm just letting you. All right, cool.
Okay, well, thank you so much to our participants and for your messages. We appreciate it. Abel Chungu Musuka, on
Yeah.
behalf of Texila American University, thank you for availing yourself
Thank you.
and giving us your time and also the information that you have. We really don't take it for granted.
Thank you.
And yeah, we wish you the best in your music and your art and everything that you do to bring people together.
Thank you.
Obviously, in the name of one Zambia, one nation.
One Zambia.
Yes, and on
Yeah.
that note, on behalf of Texila American University, I'm Cholwe, wishing you a good evening and thank you so much for participating.
See you guys.